I wasn't supposed to answer that phone. If I hadn't picked it up, my life would still make sense. It started with something stupid, something small, the kind of thing you ignore in a marriage because you don't want to be that guy, the paranoid one. My wife, Emily Carter, started taking her phone everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Bathroom, phone, shower, locked drawer. Even when we were just watching TV on the couch, she'd keep it face down like it was hiding something. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Work stress, privacy. Maybe I was overthinking. But then came the first crack. One night around 11 p.m., her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She was upstairs. I glanced at it. Didn't mean to, but the screen lit up just enough for me to read. Don't tell him. Not yet. My stomach dropped. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't open it. Just stood there. Because once you cross that line, there's no going back. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. The next morning, I brought it up casually. Hey, I said, pouring coffee like it was nothing. Your phone went off last night. She froze. Not for long, but long enough. Oh yeah, she said too quickly. Probably just work. Work. At 11 p.m. With a message like that. I nodded like I believed her. Because that's what you do when you're scared of the answer. But from that moment on, I started noticing everything. She smiled at texts she wouldn't show me. She'd step outside to take calls. She changed her passcode. And then, she bought a second charger. That was the detail that broke it. Because we already had chargers in every room. Why do you need another one? I asked. She didn't even look at me. For my office. We don't have an office. That's when I knew. This wasn't in my head. Something was wrong. And I was already too deep in it. 3 days later, everything snapped. It was a Sunday. Quiet. Normal. Too normal. She left to run errands around noon. Said she'd be back in an hour. She wasn't. 2 hours passed. Then 3. No texts. No calls. Nothing. I tried her phone. Straight to voicemail. That's when I heard it. A vibration. Not from the living room. Not from the kitchen. From upstairs. Slow. Rhythmic. Hidden. My heart started pounding immediately. Because I knew. That wasn't her main phone. I followed the sound into our bedroom. Then to the closet. Then to the back corner. Where we kept old boxes. The vibration got louder. More urgent. Like it wanted to be found. No way, I whispered. I dropped to my knees and started moving things. Shoeboxes. Old clothes. A suitcase we hadn't used in years. And then, I saw it. A phone. Not hers. Not mine. Burner. Cheap. Black. No case. Still vibrating. Still ringing. I stared at it for a long second. My brain screaming at me to stop. Because I already knew. This was the point of no return. But my hand moved anyway. I picked it up. The screen lit up. No contact name. Just a number. And one message above it. He's starting to suspect. My chest tightened so hard I couldn't breathe. The phone kept ringing. Loud now. Aggressive. Demanding. I hesitated. Just for a second. Then, I answered. Hello. Silence. Then a man's voice. Low. Calm. Cold. This isn't Emily. Everything inside me dropped. No, I said slowly. Who is this? Another pause. Longer this time. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. She didn't tell you about me? I should have hung up. Right there. The second he said, this isn't Emily. But I didn't. Because something in his voice, calm, controlled, told me he wasn't surprised. He expected this. Who are you? I asked again, tighter this time. A pause. Then a quiet exhale. That's a problem, he said. A problem. Not confusion. Not a mistake. A problem. My grip tightened around the phone. No, I said. The problem is you're calling my wife on a hidden phone. So start talking. Silence. Then, she really didn't tell you, he muttered. Not a question, a realization. And somehow, that made it worse. Tell me what? I snapped. Another pause. Longer. Like he was deciding something. Then, how long have you been married? He asked. That threw me off. 6 years. Why? A quiet chuckle. Not amused. Not friendly. More like disappointed. Yeah, he said. That tracks. My chest tightened. What does that mean? He ignored the question. Is she home right now? No. Good. That single word sent a chill down my spine. Good? Why was that good? What is this about? I demanded. Because if this is some kind of joke. It's not a joke, he cut in. Flat. Certain. And then, she told me you worked late on Sundays. I froze. Because that was true. Or at least it used to be. I took today off, I said slowly. Another pause. Then, yeah, he said. I figured something changed. My heart started racing again. You figured. I repeated. How exactly would you figure that? Silence. Then a shift in his tone. Less guarded. More direct. Because she didn't answer me for 3 hours, he said. My stomach dropped. 3 hours. The exact amount of time she'd been gone. And that's not like her. I asked. No, he said. She's usually very consistent. Consistent. The word hit harder than it should have. How long have you known her? I asked. Another pause. This one heavier. Then, long enough. That wasn't an answer. Try again. A breath on the other end. Then finally, before you. Everything inside me went quiet. What? You heard me. No, I said, shaking my head even though he couldn't see it. No, that's not possible. We met in Chicago. 6 years ago. She didn't. She didn't have a past, he cut in. His voice sharpened slightly. Everyone has a past. Not like this, I said. You'd be surprised. I started pacing the room now, the phone pressed tight against my ear. This is insane, I muttered. If you're lying. I'm not, he said. Too fast. Too certain. And if I were you, he added, I'd stop assuming you know your wife. That landed. Hard. Because part of me already knew. I didn't. Then explain it, I said. Explain why she has a second phone. Explain why you're calling it. Explain why you think this is normal. Silence. Then, it's not normal, he said. Finally, something real. Then what is it? I pushed. Another breath. Slower this time. Heavy. And then, it's necessary. A cold feeling spread through my chest. Necessary for what? He didn't answer immediately. And when he did, his voice dropped. Lower than before. Almost like he wasn't supposed to say it. Because if you found out the truth the normal way, he said, you wouldn't believe it. My pulse spiked. Try me. A long pause. Then, where is she right now? I told you I don't know. Think, he said. Where would she go if something went wrong? Something went wrong. The words echoed in my head. And suddenly, a memory surfaced. A place she used to go. Alone. When she didn't want to talk. My stomach tightened. No, I whispered. What? He asked immediately. I didn't answer. Because I was already moving. Grabbing my keys. Heading for the door. Where is she? He pressed. I hesitated. Just for a second. Then, if I'm right, I said slowly. She's at the one place she promised she'd never go back to. Silence. Then, yeah, he said. Not surprised. Not confused. Like he already knew. Then you need to get there, he added. Why? I asked. And that's when he said it. The thing that made everything worse. Because if she's there, he said, it means she didn't have a choice this time. I broke every speed limit getting there. Didn't care. Didn't think. Because once that place popped into my head, I couldn't unsee it. She had mentioned it once, just once, early in our relationship. Said it like a joke, like it didn't matter. But it did. I could tell. Everyone has a place they don't go back to, she had said. I laughed back then. Thought she was being dramatic. Now I was gripping the steering wheel so tight my hands hurt. Because I finally understood. That place wasn't a memory. It was a secret. The building came into view at the end of a quiet side street. Old. Gray. Almost invisible between newer apartments. I slowed down. Heart pounding. This was it. I hadn't even been here before. But somehow I knew. Because she had described it too precisely back then. The cracked steps. The flickering light above the entrance. The door that never fully closed unless you slammed it. It was all there. Exactly like she said. Why would you come back here? I muttered. I parked across the street, but didn't get out right away. My phone buzzed in my hand. Him. I answered immediately. I'm here. A pause. Then, yeah, he said quietly. I figured you would be. You knew about this place? I asked. Yes. That answer hit me harder than I expected. How? Silence. Then, because I've been there, he said. Of course he had. Of course he had. Then tell me what this is. I said. What am I walking into? Another pause. Longer. You're walking into her life before you, he said. That same phrase again. Before you. I hated it. What does that mean? I pushed. It means, he said slowly, you don't actually know who you married. Something inside me snapped at that. Then tell me. I snapped. Stop talking in riddles and just say it. Silence. Then. I can't, he said. Why not? Because if I say it over the phone, you won't believe me. My jaw tightened. Try me. No, he said firmly. You need to see it. A cold feeling settled in my chest. See what? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked, "Is her car there?" I looked across the street, and that's when I saw it, parked just around the corner. Half hidden, but unmistakable. My stomach dropped. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Then she's inside." The words landed heavy. Real. This wasn't theory anymore. This wasn't suspicion. She was here, in a place she swore she'd never return to. "With you?" I asked suddenly. "No," he said immediately. Too quickly. Too clean. That didn't sit right. "Then who is she with?" I asked. Silence. And that silence told me everything. "You don't know?" I said. "I have a guess." "I don't want to guess," I snapped. "I want the truth." Another pause. "Then, if I'm right," he said slowly, "you're about to meet someone she never told you about." My grip tightened on the phone. "Who?" This time, he didn't hesitate. "Her husband." Everything inside me went completely still. "I'm her husband," I said. "No," he replied. Calm. Certain. Cold. "You're the one she chose later." The words didn't even process at first. "What?" "She never divorced him." My heart stopped. "That's not possible," I said immediately. "I saw the papers. I was there when." "Were you?" he cut in. Sharp. Precise. "Or did you just sign what she gave you?" My mind started racing. Because suddenly, I couldn't remember. Not clearly. Just signatures. Documents. Moments I never questioned. "Go inside," he said. My pulse spiked. "Why?" "Because if I'm right," he said, "he's still there." A chill ran down my spine. "Doing what?" Silence. Then, "Waiting," he said. I looked at the building again. The flickering light. The dark windows. The doors slightly open. Like it was expecting someone. Expecting me. "Stay on the line," I said. "I will." I stepped out of the car. The cold air hit me immediately. But it didn't matter. Nothing did. Not anymore. I crossed the street slowly, each step heavier than the last. And as I reached the door, it creaked open just a little more. On its own. I froze. "Did you see that?" I whispered. "Yeah," he said quietly. A pause. Then, "He knows you're here." I didn't touch the door. I swear I didn't. It just opened. Slowly. Like someone on the other side had been waiting for the exact moment I stepped close enough. My hand tightened around the phone. "Stay with me," I whispered. "I'm here," he said, but his voice had changed. Lower. Tighter. Like he already knew what I was about to see. I pushed the door open the rest of the way and stepped inside. The smell hit first. Old wood. Dust. Something stale. Like the place hadn't been lived in, but hadn't been abandoned either. "Emily," I called out. No answer. The hallway stretched ahead of me, dimly lit by a flickering ceiling light. Every step echoed. Too loud. Too empty. "Do you see anything?" the voice on the phone asked. "Not yet," I said quietly. I moved forward. One step. Two. Three. And then I heard it. A sound from upstairs. A floorboard creaking. My entire body froze. "She's not alone," I whispered. "I told you," he replied. I swallowed hard and moved toward the stairs. Each step up felt heavier, like I was walking into something I couldn't stop anymore. Halfway up, I heard voices. Muffled. Low. One of them was hers. My chest tightened instantly. "Emily," I whispered under my breath. But the other voice. Male. Calm. Familiar in a way I couldn't explain. I reached the top of the stairs and followed the sound to a half-open door. The voices stopped. Instantly. Like they heard me too. Silence. Thick. Unnatural. My hand hovered over the door. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. "Open it," the man on the phone said quietly. I didn't move, because something in my gut was screaming. "Don't." But I ignored it. I pushed the door open. And everything fell apart. Emily was standing in the middle of the room. Frozen. Her eyes wide. But she wasn't looking at me like I expected. Not guilt. Not fear. Something worse. Recognition. Like she had been waiting for this exact moment. "You weren't supposed to find this place," she said. My stomach dropped. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I'm starting to hear that a lot today." Then I looked past her and saw him, sitting in a chair near the window. Calm. Still. Watching me like I was the one who didn't belong there. My breath caught. Because he didn't look like a stranger. Not completely. There was something off. Familiar. Too familiar. "Who was that?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. Emily didn't answer. She just stared at me, then at the phone in my hand. And everything changed in her expression. Fear. Real fear. "You answered it," she whispered. I frowned. What? Slowly. She took a step back. Away from me. Away from the man. Like she suddenly didn't want to be near either of us. Emily, I said, sharper now. Who is he? Silence. Then, the man in the chair stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. And when he spoke, my blood ran cold. Hang up the phone, he said. I froze. Because I knew that voice. I had been listening to it this entire time. Through the phone. My hand started shaking. No way, I whispered. The man tilted his head slightly. Almost amused. I said. He repeated calmly, hang up the phone. I pulled it away from my ear. Looked at the screen. Still connected. Still on the call. Slowly. Very slowly. I brought it back to my ear. Say something, I whispered. Silence. No voice. No breathing. Nothing. I looked up at the man again. Standing right in front of me now. Watching. Waiting. And that's when it hit me. Hard. Brutal. Impossible to ignore. You're the one I've been talking to, I said. He smiled. Just slightly. Now you're starting to understand. My world tilted. Nothing made sense anymore. Not the phone. Not Emily. Not him. Who are you? I asked. This time, he didn't dodge it. Didn't hesitate. Didn't lie. I'm the one she was married to first, he said. My chest tightened. But that's not the part you should be worried about. A cold chill ran through me. Then what is? He took one step closer and said the one thing I wasn't ready to hear. I'm the one she never told you, she never left. My brain couldn't catch up. Not with what I was seeing. Not with what I was hearing. Not with the fact that the man standing in front of me was the same voice I'd been talking to for the past 20 minutes. That's not possible, I said. It came out weak. Unconvincing. Because deep down, I already knew it was. He didn't argue. Didn't defend himself. He just watched me. Like he'd seen this exact reaction before. You called me, I said, holding up the phone. I answered. We talked. Yes, he said calmly. Then how are you here? A small pause. Then, I never said I wasn't. That answer hit wrong. Too clean. Too prepared. I turned to Emily. Explain this, I demanded. Right now. She looked like she was about to break. Not cry. Break. I tried to keep you out of this, she said quietly. Out of what? I snapped. Your other husband? That's not what this is, she said quickly. Then what is it? I shot back. Silence. She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. Because whatever this was, it wasn't simple. And that terrified me more than anything. I turned back to him. You said you knew I'd come here, I said. How? Another pause. Then, because this is what always happens. My chest tightened. What? He took a slow step toward me. Sooner or later, he said, you find the phone. A cold chill ran down my spine. You hesitate, he continued. You debate whether to answer. My grip tightened. And then, eventually you do. My heart started pounding again. How do you know that? I asked. Because there was only one answer. One explanation that made sense. And I didn't want it to be true. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he nodded toward the phone in my hand. Check the call log. My stomach dropped. Slowly, I looked down at the screen. Still on the call. Still connected. But something felt off. Wrong. I pulled it away and opened the recent calls. And that's when everything inside me went cold. There wasn't just one call. There were dozens. Same number. Same time pattern. Spread out over days. Weeks. Months. All answered. All completed. My breath caught. No, I whispered. Because I didn't remember any of them. Not one. That's not possible, I said again. But it sounded even weaker this time. He watched me carefully. You don't remember, he said. Not a question. A statement. I shook my head slowly. No. I would know. I would remember something like this. You would think so, he said. That phrase again. Like he'd said it before. Like I'd heard it before. And suddenly, a flicker. A moment. A feeling. Standing in the same room. Holding the same phone. Hearing the same voice. My heart skipped. Wait, I whispered. The room felt smaller. Tighter. What is this? I asked. What's happening to me? No one answered. Not him. Not Emily. Because I think. They were waiting for me to figure it out myself. I looked at her again. Tell me the truth, I said. All of it. Right now. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She just shook her head slowly. You're not ready, she whispered. That snapped something in me. Stop saying that. I shouted. Everyone keeps saying that like it means something. What am I not ready for? Silence. Then, he stepped closer again. Close enough now that I could see every detail of his face. And that's when it hit me. Hard, brutal, unavoidable. We looked similar. Not identical, but close enough. Same height, same build, even the same scar above the eyebrow. I had that. My stomach dropped. No way, I whispered. He saw it. The realization. And for the first time, he smiled. Not friendly, not mocking, just satisfied. You're getting there, he said. I took a step back, my pulse racing out of control now. Who are you? I asked again. But this time, I wasn't just asking his name. I was asking something deeper. Something I wasn't sure I wanted answered. And this time, he gave it to me. I'm you, he said. The room went silent. That's not funny, I said. I'm not joking. No. I shook my head, backing away. No, that's not possible. Emily finally spoke. Please stop. But he didn't. Same life, he continued calmly. Same choices. Same mistakes. My chest tightened. Just different outcomes. My mind started spinning. Because suddenly, those calls, those missing memories, the way he knew everything, it all pointed to one thing. One impossible, terrifying idea. This has happened before, I said slowly. He nodded. Yes. How many times? I asked. A pause. Then, enough. My hands started shaking. Why don't I remember? His expression shifted slightly. Less calm. More serious. Because every time you get too close to the truth, he said, she resets it. I turned to Emily instantly. What did he just say? Her face went pale. Tell me he's lying, I demanded. Silence. Tears finally filled her eyes. But she didn't deny it. That was my answer. You what? My voice broke. You reset what? She took a shaky breath. The day, she whispered. My heart stopped. What? The moment you find out, she continued, barely able to speak now. I can't let it continue. Cold. Empty. Terrifying. Why? I asked. And that's when she said it. The thing that destroyed everything I thought I understood. Because the last time you found out, she whispered, you didn't survive it. You didn't survive it. The words didn't just land, they echoed. Like they had been said before. Like I had heard them before. And forgotten. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Because suddenly, everything felt unstable. The room. The people in it. Even me. What do you mean? I didn't survive? I finally managed. Emily couldn't look at me. That alone told me enough. But I needed to hear it. All of it. Say it. I said, quieter now, but sharper. Her hands were shaking. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. That's not an answer. I tried to stop you. Stop me from what? I snapped. The man, him, stepped in before she could answer. From finding out too much, he said calmly. I turned to him instantly. You said this happened before, I said. So tell me, what did I find out? A pause. Then, everything. That word hit harder than anything else. Because it meant this. This moment wasn't new. It was a repeat. And what happens after that? I asked. Silence. Neither of them answered. That was worse. What happens? I pushed louder. He looked at me, straight in the eyes, and said it flat. You panic. My chest tightened. You don't believe it at first, he continued. Then you start connecting things. Fragments flickered in my head again. The phone, the calls, her lies. And then, I asked. You push harder, he said. You start asking questions she can't control. I glanced at Emily. She looked like she was already reliving it. Then you get close, he added. How close? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Too close. A chill ran through me. And that's when it breaks, he said. What breaks? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped even closer. Close enough that it felt wrong. Like looking into something I shouldn't see. Reality, he said quietly. My pulse spiked. That doesn't make sense. It will, he replied. No, it won't, I snapped. None of this does. Resetting days? Multiple versions of me? You standing here like some copy. I'm not a copy, he said sharply. That was the first time his calm cracked. I'm what happens when you don't get reset in time. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. My stomach dropped. What? Emily let out a quiet, broken sound behind me. Don't, she whispered. But it was too late. What does that mean? I asked slowly. He held my gaze. It means, he said, one time she failed. My chest tightened. Failed to what? To stop you. The air felt thinner now, harder to breathe. And then, I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. He didn't look away. You found the truth, he said. I swallowed hard. And his voice dropped. Lower. Darker. And you couldn't handle it. A cold wave hit me. What did I do? Silence. Then, you tried to leave. That didn't sound so bad. And Emily finally spoke, her voice shaking. You didn't make it, she whispered. My heart skipped. What does that mean? Her eyes filled with tears. I tried to reset it, she said. I swear I did. But something went wrong. What went wrong? I demanded. She looked at him. Not me. Him. And that's when I understood. He was the result. I didn't disappear, he said quietly. My stomach dropped. I stayed. The room spun slightly. Stayed where? I asked. His expression didn't change. In between. That answer felt wrong. Like it didn't belong in reality. What does that even mean? I whispered. He tilted his head slightly. Think about it, he said. If she resets the day, where do you think the version of you who already lived it goes? My chest tightened. No, I said immediately. No, that's not. You don't vanish, he continued. You don't rewind. My pulse was out of control now. You get left behind. Silence. Pure. Terrifying. I shook my head slowly. That's not possible. It wasn't supposed to be, he said. But it happened. I turned to Emily. Tell me he's lying, I said. She didn't answer. She just cried. That was enough. My legs felt weak. So every time I get close. You disappear, he said. No, he corrected himself. You get replaced. My breath caught. By me? I asked. He shook his head slowly. No, that was worse. By the version of you who hasn't figured it out yet. Everything clicked. Brutally. All at once. The calls. The missing time. The repeated patterns. I've done this before, I whispered. Yes. How many times? He didn't answer. Because the number didn't matter. The pattern did. And you? I asked. Why are you here now? A small pause. Then, because this time, he said, you're closer than you've ever been. A chill ran through my entire body. Closer to what? He looked at me. Dead serious now. No reset. The room went completely still. What? Emily shook her head immediately. No, she said. No, that's not true. I can still fix this. You can't, he cut in. She froze. You already tried, he said. My heart stopped. Tried what? He looked back at me and said the one thing that made everything collapse. She already reset today. Silence. Total. Absolute. What? I whispered. He didn't blink. Everything you remember right now? A pause. Then, already happened. My hands started shaking uncontrollably. That's not possible, I said. It is, he replied. And you know how I can prove it? My throat went dry. How? He glanced at the phone in my hand. Then back at me. Because in about 30 seconds, he said quietly, your phone is going to ring. My pulse spiked. That doesn't prove anything. And then, it rang. The same number. The same call. The same moment. Starting again. And this time, I already knew what would happen if I answered. My phone kept ringing. Same number. Same vibration. Same moment. Again. But this time, I knew. My hand hovered over the screen, frozen between instinct and fear. Don't answer it. Emily's voice cracked behind me. Please don't. I looked at her. Really looked. Not the version I loved. Not the version I trusted. The version that had been resetting me. Over. And over. And over again. How many times? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. Tears ran down her face, but that wasn't enough anymore. How many times have I stood right here and asked you that? I pressed. Silence. That was the answer. I turned to him. The other me. The one who didn't disappear. You said this time is different, I said. Why? He didn't hesitate. Because you remembered before the reset finished. My chest tightened. What? You weren't supposed to, he said. Usually it wipes clean. Completely. But not this time. He shook his head. Not fast enough. The phone kept ringing. Louder now. More aggressive. Like it needed me to answer. What happens if I do? I asked. He looked at me. Serious. Final. You go back, he said. Same day? Same questions. Same ending. And you? I asked. I stay here, he replied. Like always. That hit harder than anything else. Trapped. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. I looked back at the phone. Still ringing. Still waiting. Why are you doing this? I asked Emily. My voice wasn't angry anymore. Just empty. You said I didn't survive last time. I continued. So instead of letting me choose, you just keep me here? She shook her head desperately. I'm protecting you, she whispered. From what? Her voice broke completely. From the truth. That word again. Always that word. The thing just out of reach. The thing everything revolved around. What truth? I asked. She hesitated. And for a second, I thought she wasn't going to say it. Then, "You're not supposed to exist past today," she whispered. Everything inside me went still. What? The other me didn't react. Like he already knew. Every version of you that finds out, she continued, barely holding herself together, starts breaking down. Physically, mentally. It's like your mind rejects it. My pulse slowed. Too slow. What happens to me? I asked. Her lips trembled. You die? Silence. Cold. Final. And resetting fixes that. I asked. For a while, she said. For a while, I repeated. Because that was the problem. That always meant. Not forever. The phone kept ringing. I looked down at it again. Then back at him. Have I ever made a different choice? I asked. A pause. Then. No. That hurt more than I expected. Not once. He shook his head slowly. You always answer. Of course I did. Because I never knew. Until now. The ringing got sharper. More urgent. Like time was running out. Then this is the first time, I said quietly. Emily stepped forward suddenly. No. Listen to me. If you don't answer it. What? I snapped. What happens if I don't? She froze. And that hesitation, that tiny pause, told me everything. You don't know? I said. Her silence confirmed it. You've never let it go this far, the other me added. I looked between them. The woman who kept resetting me. The version of me who got left behind. And the phone, still ringing, still waiting, for the same mistake. Again, my thumb moved, hovered, shaking. Emily's voice broke into panic. Please, if you don't answer, I can't reset it. That stopped me. Completely. You can't. I repeated. She shook her head rapidly. It needs the call. It needs the same sequence, or it won't. She stopped. Too late. Because now I understood. The reset wasn't automatic. It was triggered. By me. Answering. The phone. A slow, cold realization settled over me. You never controlled this, I said. Her face went pale. You just followed the pattern. The other me nodded slightly. Exactly. The phone rang again. Louder. More distorted now. Like it was glitching. Breaking. Running out of time. I took a slow breath. For the first time. A real one. Not rushed. Not panicked. Clear. Then I looked at the screen. And made the only choice I never had before. I declined the call. Silence. Instant. Total. The ringing stopped. The room. Shifted. Not physically. But something loosened. Like tension snapping after being stretched too far. Emily stumbled back. No, she whispered. No, no, no. The lights flickered. The air felt different. Unstable. What's happening? I asked. But I already knew. The cycle was breaking. The other me looked around slowly. For the first time, he looked unsure. This isn't supposed to happen, he said. Emily dropped to her knees. You weren't supposed to choose differently. But I did. And now, everything was changing. The walls flickered slightly. Like they weren't fully real anymore. Like something was collapsing behind them. What happens now? I asked. No one answered. Because for the first time, there was no script. No reset. No pattern. Just what came next. The other me looked at me. Really looked. And for the first time, there was something like respect in his eyes. You broke it, he said quietly. I looked down at the phone. The screen was black now. Dead. No call. No number. Nothing. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, I said. Then I looked at both of them and asked the only question that mattered now. So what's real? No one had an answer. Because for the first time, there wasn't one. And whatever came next wouldn't repeat, wouldn't reset, wouldn't be controlled. It would be mine for the first time ever.